Hello, my name is Connor, and I will be providing the commentary for Prince George Pokemon's Prismatic Evolutions League Cup Top Cup. Our event this weekend had 13 players, and as such, we have cut to 4. Our format was Brilliant Stars through Prismatic Evolutions, the FGH blocks, and we have 4 incredible players to showcase. Our top cut this weekend comprised of Kyler Short, Gabriel Galbraith, Ed Danlo, forgive me if I mispronounce his name, and Eric Merritt. We will be showcasing the A side of our top 4 masters this weekend with Kyler Short and Gabriel Galbraith. Our B side was won by Eric Merritt in a tiebreaker match after the set concluded 1-1. On the left side, you'll see Kyler Short, who will be piloting Roaring Moon EX with Petrarunt, and Gabriel Galbraith will be piloting Charizard EX with Pidgeot. Talk a little bit about the players. We have Kyler Short, who joined us fairly recently. Is just coming up on a 2-year career. Has 2 League Cup wins, as well as an overall league champion for 2024. Hopefully, aiming to cinch up a 3rd win and make it, as he calls it, a dynasty. And we have Gabe on the other side, who has been playing for a similar amount of time, I think a little bit longer than Kyler, and has been playing pretty consistently. He's managed to top cut several of our league cups here, I think 3 at the time of recording this. And but he's just not quite been able to cinch up a victory. So hopefully this will be his chance. Both players just finishing their setup now. It appears that Kyler, I believe, has won the coin flip. I'm not 100% sure, but Gabe will be going first in our game 1. I didn't quite get a great look at either player's hand, so I'm not quite able to make a comment, but we will maybe see a little bit more information about the match once it begins. It seems like the fist bump is coming down and it's starting. Kyler Short opening with Radiant Greninja and Gabriel opening with Pheasantipity EX. And we see an immediate Buddy Buddy Poffin. 2 Buddy Buddy Poffins coming down from Gabe. That's going to be a huge relief from his side, being able to set up 4 basic Pokemon. I know setup is going to be very important in this matchup for him. Choosing to get 2 Charmanders, a Pidgey, and a Duskull. Duskull is going to be super impactful in this matchup, necessary to be able to do extra damage in order to both give Kyler prizes to boost Charizard EX's damage, but as well as to pick up knockouts later or even set up to prevent gouges. The Pheasantipity EX in the active might be a little bit of trouble, though. He will need to find a way to move that in order to prevent Kyler from taking an easy 2 prize cards. A lot of this matchup is going to come down to the prize race. So we see Gabe eyeing up the rest of his hand. Not quite sure what he's wanting to do with the rest. I would imagine he's hopingly looking for a retreat. I'm not quite sure what he would want to do. He's just going to end up passing. Seems like. Oh, maybe unsure here, or is that... Yeah, he is end up going to play that Ultra Ball. So he's choosing to discard, canceling Clone. I can't see him using that in the matchup notes. I don't definitely agree with that discard. He's eyeing up the Pidgeotto. A little bit of the boss's orders, maybe on the shore. Is choosing to discard that Iono. I definitely agree with that. I don't think Iono is super important in that hand, especially if he ends up having that Pidgeotto. Might want to end up going for something else. Let's see what he chooses to search for. He's eyeing up a Charmeleon, looking at Pidgeot EX. Not really sure. It's kind of a slower turn. I think maybe he could have held that Ultra Ball for the following turn. He might be going for just a Rotom V too, as well as an option to just go ahead and draw some extra cards for the next turn to help improve his setup. Though it might be risky to bench that. And it looks like he's not going. He's just going for the Charizard. He's just saying, hey, look, I know Roaring Moon doesn't play a ton of disruption. I think it's safe to just go ahead and play this Ultra Ball now and to just search that out and have that in my hand for the following turn. Not sure, not much else going on in this hand. So it looks like he's just announced a pass. So it's over to Kyler's turn, and he's just drawn into a Lost Vacuum. Not sure how much that's going to help his hand, but he chooses to use that concealed cards, draws into Boss's Orders and another Dark Energy. I'm not sure quite. He's going to play the Trekking Shoes, check the top card of the deck. He's deciding to keep it and immediately play it. It is going to be that Squawkabilly EX. That's a huge pull. It's going to make this opening a lot stronger. Receive the immediate Dark Patch to get that energy back onto the board and another attachment turn. And I'm going to imagine there's not much happening the rest of his hand, so he's probably just going to Squawk and Seize. And it looks like that's what he's going to do. So he's going to go ahead and just draw 6 cards. And this is just a perfect scenario for Kyler. I mean, he's got an easy 2 prizes right in front of him. All he needs is a stadium, which it looks like he has, and another way to get a dark energy on his Pokemon. Unfortunately, that was one of them that he just milled with the Pokestop. That Professor saw his vitality. He needs either that or a dark patch in order to get an additional energy. So he's choosing to just fish some energy out of the deck by discarding 1 dark energy to search for 2 more. He finds them pretty quickly. Doesn't really opt to do another thorough deck search. I think he's just probably just saying like, "Look, I'm playing pretty high counts of things. I'm not really needed. The time is going to be more important." Goes ahead and just shuffles up the deck. And at this point, if I'm Gabe, I'm pretty much sweating. That moon is pretty much already powered up. All he needs is Petron EX, which he already has in hand, and just a way to get another dark energy on. But it doesn't look like he really has a great way. He might just have to end up passing here because that hand is not super strong. Might just end up giving Gabe a turn, which is the break Gabe might just need to take control of this match. Use that pal pad just to put those 2 important supporters of Boss's Orders and Sado's Vitality back in. Gets the deck, and I can't see much else happening, so not sure what he's going to do. And he's just announced a pass as well. So it's back over to Gabe. And this turn, I feel like your best line is to just get as set up as possible. And hopefully, if you can, maybe find a way around that Radiant Greninja. I wouldn't really bother attacking into it. You might not want to take that single prize if you want to end up going for a Briar play for the end of the game. So we see that beautiful Pokestop giving him that rare candy, a very valuable resource in this deck. He's just going to play it right away and get into that Charizard EX. Using Infernal Rain, I imagine he's going to put 2 energy on the Charizard and 1 on the Pheasantipity in order to retreat it. I wonder if that's what we'll do. I'm not quite sure how much energy Gabe plays, and it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do. I think it might not be too bad to swing into this Radiant Greninja, especially if you plan on playing Briar, because then you can force your opponent to go 2, 4, 6, and on that 4 turn, you go ahead and take the Briar for a 3 prize turn. So he's going to knock out that Radiant Greninja and go down, take the first prize. The big deal is the first 2 prizes in the matchup. So Kyler's definitely going to take a huge lead here with this Roaring Moon EX. But don't sweat it, because if he uses Frenzied Gouging, that Duskull can go ahead and take a return KO relatively easily. So he does have to be careful with how he navigates this. But he did top deck, I believe, the Ultra Ball, which is very huge because it's going to give him more retreating options and more draw Pokemon as well. I imagine he's going to go get a Mew EX, but perhaps not. We'll see what he ends up. He ends up eyeing up that Unfair Stamp. Something very unusual about Kyler's list is the inclusion of that Unfair Stamp. It is definitely unique. A lot of players don't play around it. They get very greedy against Roaring Moon, and they'll get punished. Most players are expecting that Prime Catcher, and Kyler has gone on the record to state that he doesn't really miss it, that he thinks the Unfair Stamp is much better, and it seems to pay off for him. So he's just eyeing that up, making sure that that is around for a play later, as I'm assuming it could be very devastating if Gabe is left with no Pidgeot EX in play. But that Pheasantipity EX he says on his sideboard could protect him from that later on. So he's choosing to attach that Dark Energy to the active and bench his second moon, and his hand's empty. He's just going to go ahead and draw 3 cards. See Pokestop, Single Prize Roaring Moon, and Dark Energy. Another unique thing about Kyler's list is the 2 copies of Single Prize Roaring Moon. Definitely useful against a lot of matchups that choose to advance with single prizes. Decks like Lost Box or Guardy. Definitely helpful for those matchups. See him just Earthen Vessel, just getting more energy out of the deck. So the thinner the deck, the better. Especially when it comes to your energy. You don't want to be drawing into those. You really want to have as much access to those as possible in order to keep powering up Roaring Moons, as they're certainly going to get knocked out when they're dealing 200 damage to themselves. And not much else to do this turn. It looks like he doesn't really have access to any way to accelerate additional energy, but maybe the Striking Shoes will give it to him. He chooses to keep it. It is a Dark Patch. It's a very valuable resource. I'm not sure if he wants to play it right now or if he chooses to play it later. I imagine holding it's probably better. The less information you give Gabe, the better. Might make him play a less aggressive turn against you if he thinks you maybe don't have the capacity to power up that moon. But I guess maybe he says, I don't want to get Ionoed out of this Dark Patch, and I'm just going to play it, and it doesn't really matter. He's going to go ahead and Frenzied Gouging, dealing 200 damage to himself and taking first 2 prize cards of the match. That's going to be huge for him. Promotion of the Pidgeotto. And Gabe's going to go ahead and draw for turn. He does top deck a Rare Candy, incredibly useful in this situation for sure. And going to go ahead and draw 3 cards for that Flip the Script. Very powerful ability. And you see Arven, Manaphy, Fire Energy. Not a ton that really helps, but that Arven could go get key resources and power up the rest of this turn. I imagine the best line in this situation would be to use an Ultra Ball or an Arven to go power up your Pidgeot and then get another Charizard going. I would prefer if you could use a Counter Catcher or maybe a Prime Catcher to go ahead and knock out the Roaring Moon on the back in order to protect your Charizard from a gouge, effectively making it difficult for Kyler to go ahead and use Frenzy Gouging again, because then it would put you in a situation to immediately win the game the following turn. But we'll see what Gabe chooses to do. Eyeing up that Technical Machine Evolution. Interesting inclusion from his list. Definitely a tech for the Badoo. Badoo's been ravaging the matchup quite a lot, and he just go ahead and play that Ultra Ball and get Pidgeot. So I'm wondering what he's going to grab with the Pidgeot. It is just going to be that Charizard EX, showing it to his opponent, saying, I'm going to use this immediately. So he's going to go ahead and Infernal Rain. One Fire Energy. So he does have 1 in hand, so it's not going to be too much of an issue, but he is going to have to keep a close eye on his resources in order to have enough Fire Energy for the rest of the match. So he's going to take, I believe, that 1 attachment from turn for hand, yep, to power up that Charizard EX. And I see a Professor Churro scenario. I can't imagine that's going to be very useful, so you might be looking for a good opportunity to use that as discard fodder. He's just going to play the Tsunami Ball, saying, hey, I want to look at my prize. I'm going to see I got prize. I see Briar, Defiance Band, Fire Energy, Rotom V, and a Pidgey prize. That Briar prize is huge. It's going to be a major impact on the rest of this match. Knowing that that card's not available to you will definitely change the way you're going to play the rest of this match, though it still looks to me like Gabe is in a pretty decent position if he can go ahead and use a Boss's Orders on the Roaring Moon in the back. We have Kyler there fixing up his prize cards just to make sure everyone can see that he has 5 remaining. And he does have the Boss's Orders. He could go for that play I was talking about, but maybe not. He's interesting choice. It looks like he wants to go ahead and knock out maybe the active Roaring Moon. I'm not sure. That would leave him in an less good situation, because Kyler then would just need Sada plus attachment from hand in order to power up that second moon. But maybe he thinks, hey, maybe Kyler just doesn't have it, and he ends up just announcing that Burning Darkness, choosing to save the Boss's Orders, maybe for later in the match, and Gabe goes down to 3 prize cards. I'm not quite sure what he picked off the prizes, but if he did get Briar, that's going to be a major, major help, because in this situation, if he has even Rare Candy or Ultra Ball, then Briar's going to help him win the game the next turn if Kyler chooses to Frenzy Gouging again, which is going to be huge. You see Geiler playing. I'm not quite sure, but he is. Oh, he's searching his discard pile. He wants to make sure and check his resource. I imagine he's looking for cards like Sada and Dark Patch, just seeing how many of those he has less before he chooses to take the risk with Pokestop. Eyeing up that Nest Ball. He's going to go ahead and search his deck for a basic Pokemon. We'll see what he grabs. Imagine it has to be maybe just a second Roaring Moon EX, just making sure that he has as many heavy hitters as he can in play. Gabe goes and cuts it. He does have Dark Patch in hand, and he does have a free treater in the active, so this might be pretty easy to just go ahead and return KO this Charizard. But he might be walking into a perfect trap here laid by Gabe with that Briar. Maybe instead, Kyler should choose to maybe go around the Charizard, maybe choose to KO something like a Charmander this turn, and then return KO the Charizard the following turn, maybe preventing Gabe from playing maybe a Dusknoir play for game, or preventing him from maybe setting up enough Charizards to continue winning the game. But it doesn't seem like that's his end goal. I think he just wants to KO the active Charizard, which might not be the worst play ever. But as we know, folks, that I think Gabe might have taken Briar off the prizes here. We draw those 3 cards. The Ancient Booster Energy Capsules are going to be really, really important. That's another tech in Kyler's list that is definitely non-standard, but has been huge for him. Those capsules are going to help him survive a Dusclops ping from Gabe. So Gabe is going to be forced into Dusknoir in order to take return KOs using those prizes. But I do see Briar in Gabe's hand. He is eyeing it up. He knows that if Kyler takes this knockout, he might have game in hand. But we're going to see what happens here. He's got the Dark Patch. We see Gabe giving a little bit of sigh of disappointment. He obviously didn't want him to power up that moon. It's just another thing he's got to deal with. We see Pokemon Catcher. Not a single one played this match. He's just been going ahead and knocking out the active. But it might be a great idea to go ahead and try and maybe KO a Pokemon on the back instead of the active here. But remember that even if Kyler does choose to do that, the Dusknoir could put him back to 2 prizes for the Briar. Not something that maybe either player has thought of, but it could be an interesting line if Kyler chooses to knock out one of the single prizers on the back. So maybe it would be better for Kyler to go ahead and knock out that Duskull and maybe take away that option from Gabe. But in fairness, doing that would put Kyler behind in the prize race, which is definitely not where you want to be as a Roaring Moon player. Seems like this game is basically Gabe's in the bag. He's going to go ahead and announce that frenzied gouging. So, as we know, folks, if Gabe is able to set up another Charizard, he basically has a guaranteed win. And I can't imagine it'll be too difficult. He does have both Flip the Script and Quick Search online. So, if he goes ahead and flips the script first, he can maybe draw into it. And he top decks a rare candy. That is a huge top deck. It's going to make it so much easier to power up that. And I think with Arvin... Oh, no, he will have to play Briar, so he won't be able to play the Arvin. But I do see potentially an Ultra Ball. Maybe it looks not quite it. Might not have the pieces. But I think if Pidgeot is able to go get a Charizard, then it'd be in good shape. But remember, folks, he has used quite a lot of his energy. He might be needing to find himself more energy back into the deck. And a Super Rod might be necessary to win this game. I'm not sure what he's eyeing. He's eyeing up that Nest Ball and the Briar, trying to piece this turn together. As Arvin in hand. He knows he definitely doesn't want to play that. He wants to play Briar in order to win this turn. Seems like there's some discussion going on. Potentially with a judge. Not quite sure. So he's going to go ahead and use that Pokestop. Mills the Charizard. Gets the Super Rod. That is huge. That might just guarantee Gabe the win. Incredible hit off the Pokestop. That is basically the exact card he needed. And see him rushing. He thinks he has it. He's going to put that Charizard back and at least 2 fire energy. And with that Quick Search, I think Gabe is going to go ahead and take our game 1. We're just going to watch and make sure and see if that's exactly what happens. Gabe is on 3 prizes, and Kyler is on 2, which means he can play that Briar. He's just trying to make sure he pieces this together correctly. He's going to go ahead and quick search, and I see him rushing because I think he's finally seen the line. There it is. He gets the Charizard and the rare candy. Announcing that Infernal Rain. Going to go get 2 Fire Energy from the deck and attach it straight to his Charizard. And he gets it on there. Checking the discard pile, and he's just going to go send his Charizard into the active and play the Briar. Go ahead and use Burning Darkness there, and he's going to go ahead and take 3 prizes, and Gabe's going to take our game 1. So the set is now 1-0 for Gabe. We're going to see what Kyler chooses, whether he wants to go first or second. I can't imagine there's a world where he would choose to go first. I think this matchup is very much favored into Charizard, and going second is definitely an advantage for our Roaring Moon player. Talk about the highlights of that game. Definitely Briar ended up being huge, getting both the Briar off the prizes and that Pokestop hit off the Super Rod was so huge for Gabe there. I still think Gabe was in a pretty strong position throughout the entirety of that game, and definitely had a huge advantage, especially with Dusclops on as a potential hit. Looking at the opening hand there for Kyler, I see a Pow Pad and a Dark Energy at least. I can't really see the rest. Gabe's opening with a Charmander and a Technical Machine Evolution. And Kyler has to take 1 mulligan. That's going to give 1 extra card to Gabe, is another big advantage. Setting up with Charizard is hugely important to the deck's strategy, especially in a matchup like this, where setting up quickly just ends up giving you an incredible advantage over a Roaring Moon player. But he's going to go ahead and just set his prizes down just so he doesn't forget. Remember, folks, you do set up your prizes before you take your mulligans. So just go ahead and use that dice to mark the mulligans on his deck. They're just shuffling up again, going for a second hand. He needs to have a basic Pokemon in order to start the game. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's drawing 7 cards. And what do we see? He's got a fistful of energy, and it's going to be another mulligan. This is a big deal. Gabe's going to be able to start his hand with 9 cards, which is a pretty considerable size for an opening hand, especially going to help you set up in these combo decks that require a lot of rare candy and Pokemon combinations. Choosing to get a second Charmander. We'll see what else he chooses to grab. Imagine it has to either be a third Charmander or a second Duskull. Remember, folks, a huge part of this matchup is the first person to take 2 prize cards. So if Gabriel can end this turn with a single prize board state and a hand that can help him launch a strong attack the following turn, Gabe will be in an excellent position to end up winning this game. And I see Ultra Ball. He's going to choose and use it, discarding a second Ultra Ball. It's definitely going to be a impactful discard there. I mean, Ultra Balls are hard to come by. He's choosing to put down the Rotom V. I'm not sure if I totally agree with this play, but he's going to go ahead and use that and take 3 cards. But maybe he's just saying my hand is not strong enough to formulate a good response next turn, so I'm going to need to draw these 3 extra cards, even if it ends up costing me 2 prizes. We're looking at looks like the rest of the hand isn't too strong, so maybe it's not the worst play to take that Rotom down. He's going to go ahead and just draw 3 cards with Rotom. You find Pidgeot and Energy, which is huge. That Pidgeot is great because he already has that rare candy in his hand. And on Kyler's side of the board, we have a Nest Ball coming down. He's probably going to eye up either Squawkabilly, Radiant Greninja, or Mew EX. I have to imagine it'll be Squawkabilly first, as it guarantees him a fresh hand of 6 out of a hand that might not be too good, but he's eyeing up that Radiant Greninja, saying, look, I have a lot of energy in my hand. I got a couple Dark Patches. I want to power up this single prize Moon right away and just make sure I get that guaranteed knockout. Definitely more important over that Squawkabilly's draw of 6. Just shuffling up there, presenting the deck to his opponent. I see 2 Dark Patches in the hand, so that could be very powerful and very, definitely not something you want to be discarding with Squawkabilly. He does discard that Pheasantipity EX. That is going to be a pretty big discard, as getting that established is going to make him much more resistant to disruption. So he's going to go ahead and draw 2 cards with concealed cards. Looking, and he's going to bench that single prize Roaring Moon and just get it powered up right away. So the player's discussing something. I'm not quite sure what it is, but he's choosing to use Sada's Vitality to power up Moon instead of Dark Patch, just to draw those 3 extra cards. Trying to make sure he has outs to his various Pokemon, and especially trying to find that on the first turn. Choosing to discard a Dark Energy, you'll get 2 more. It's a classic move in the Roaring Moon deck. Very helpful to make sure your Dark Energy is in the discard for those Dark Patches and Professor Sada's Vitalities. I'm staring down a board like this. I have to imagine that Pidgey there is going to be prime target number 1. Even if you don't know that your opponent has Candy Pidgeot in their hand, I imagine that's got to be pretty juicy targeting the opponent's engine, especially when they have bench Rotom and drew 3 cards, clearly indicating that their opening hand wasn't strong enough to maintain that single prize board state. Either way, he does have the guaranteed knockout here, so hopefully for him that he can find maybe a Pokemon catcher, or I guess it would have to be a Pokemon catcher because he has used his supporter for turns, so Boss's Orders is not going to do it. But hopefully he find a way to find that Pokemon catcher. So he just has put the Moon down. I can't imagine why I would agree with that. I think personally I would prefer to go Squawkabilly there and just try to find those 6 cards to knock out that Pidgey. But instead, he just chooses to play it safe, saying, I definitely am going to need these Dark Patches for the rest of this game, so I'm okay maybe with just KOing this Charmander in the active. I mean, I'm not sure how impactful it's going to be. Gabe's got 3 Charmanders down. Each of them is all capable of turning into a Charizard EX. Just going to go ahead and get much use as possible out of those Dark Patches, and he might just go ahead, and he's just going to go ahead and swing, choosing not to place the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, not thinking maybe that I need to save those for the Roaring Mini X's, where that extra HP is definitely going to be a little bit more relevant. But he's maybe making that decision. He's saying, I'm not sure. Maybe he does want to put it on. Maybe he's trying to play around a potential Dusknoir, but he just go ahead and knock out the Charmander with a Vengeance Fletching. So it's over to Gabe here, and he does have that very powerful rare candy into Pidgeot, and he's just going to go ahead and play that right away. I definitely agree with that. I want to make sure we don't miss out on that. Having that engine is going to be huge. And he's not a Collapse Stadium. He might be thinking, like, this is a great way to get rid of my Rotom here, get sort of that easy 2-prize liability. I could Buddy Poffin for maybe another Duskull and then collapse away my Rotom. It also gets rid of Kyler's access to Pokestop, which means if he's been potentially relying on that to draw him some cards into his next turn, he might not have access to it, which could be devastating. See, Gabe is just thinking here, maybe not sure what he wants to do. He's just going to go ahead and quick search. So he's going to go ahead and look at his deck and decide what line he wants to go through. He's going to go get an Arven, and I can't say I totally disagree with this either. He's going to go get a Forest Seal Stone and any item card he wants. Forest Seal Stone does give that Star Alchemy V-Star power to Rotom V, which will allow him to get any card he wants out of the deck. Looks like he's opting to choose to discard Collapse instead of playing it alongside that Buddy Buddy Poffin. Uh, Maybe saying, I don't really worry too much about my Rotom V being benched. Saying, look, hey, I'm going to be putting Charizard EXs every turn, and you're going to have to respond to them because every time you take a knockout, they're just going to get more and more deadly. So he goes ahead and he leave Ultra Balls for Charizard and is going to go ahead and use that Star Alchemy to go get Rare Candy. So to get Charizard EX into play. Infernal Rain going to put one more energy on that Charizard EX. On this turn, it might have been maybe a little more impactful to maybe find a way to get this Charizard up without using Arbin and go for ahead for a boss's orders onto something like maybe the Petrarunt, or given he's taken a prize card, meaning that Charizard EX is going to deal 210 damage, which is enough to knock out the Petrarunt, but is instead choosing to just go ahead and KO that first single prize moon. If we remember in the last game, folks, this is exactly the same script we were following here. Gabe go ahead and just knocks out a single prizer, takes two more prizes, and then Briars for game. And I believe that's got to be his plan here for this game as well. It's can't say it's a terrible one, as it worked out from last time into the same lines, but he's going to have to make sure he can find that Briar on the key turns that he needs them. So we're just going to go ahead and search out two more Dark Energy on Kyler's side, making sure his decks are as thin as possible for drawing them, because he can draw into those powerful trainer cards he's going to need to keep these Roaring Moons powered up. Looking at his hand, just keeping track of his resources, looking at how much energy he has access to in the discard pile, how many Dark Patches have I used. Needs to make sure that when he plays Professor Sal's Vitality that he can get as much value as possible out of them with both Pokemon getting a Dark Energy to them. That is just one of the best parts about Professor Sal's Vitality is so powerful, is that you can power up two attackers at once with one supporter card, and you get to draw three cards. It's just as good as you could ask for a supporter card. And he's going to go ahead and play that Pokemon catcher, and it is a Tails, which means he's not going to be able to gust up another Pokemon. So I think Kyler's definitely eyeing up that Pidgeot EX or the Rotom V, especially if he goes ahead and knocks out that Rotom V. He's already taken one prize card. Gabriel would be forced to use Dusknoir and give Kyler an additional prize in order to knock out his Roaring Moon if he puts an Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, which will be huge for Kyler, as it will put him just to two prizes and will give him a opportunity to use Frenzied Gouging to just win the game with this second powered up Roaring Moon. So we see an energy in hand. He's going to go ahead and attach that to the moon to finish fully powering it up. And he's got, looks like either an Ultra Ball or another Pokemon Catcher. I couldn't quite see it. It's going to be another Pokemon Catcher, and this is going to be a huge flip here. And it fell on the ground, so we're going to have to go pick that up and flip it again. And it is a heads, which is going to be huge. Kyler is now going to get to choose one of Gabe's bench Pokemon to bring into the active. And it's whatever it is, it's certainly going to get knocked out, and it is going to be that Pidgeot EX. Kyler, they're very intelligently saying, look, Gabe's hand is not huge. He might not have access to a ton of resources. If I knock out this Pidgeot, he might really struggle to get that Briar play coming into the next few turns. Touches that Ancient Booster Capsule like we talked about earlier to protect himself from the Dusknoir, and he is going to use that Dark Patch to power up his second moon a little bit more, just saying I want to protect myself from a potential Iono to 3, especially given I don't have a ton of draw Pokemon in play. I only have that Radiant Greninja. And this is where that Pheasantipity discard at the beginning becomes huge. If he had Pheasantipity on boards, he would be a lot more conservative with his resources, as he says, look, if I get Iono'd, I'm still going to be able to draw a ton of cards and I might find it. So he's going to play that Palpad. He is only shuffling in the Iono. So I have to imagine that Kyler here is anticipating a situation where he Frenzied Gougings a Charizard EX, and he's going to Iono his opponent to just a few cards. Without Pidgeot in play, his opponent's not going to really have a great way to respond to that. And so he's just going to go ahead and use that Frenzy Gouging, putting 200 damage counters on his active. All right, so here we have Gabe. He's going to draw for turn. Now, without Pidgeot, his setup is just not going to be as strong. He's going to get at least one Fire Energy on that Charmander, prepping it to become a Charizard later in the match. And it's just going to go ahead and play that Iona, saying, look, 3-card hand, not as good as a 5-card hand, and you got a lot of cards. I want to set you down to 3, especially with that Radiant Greninja being your only support Pokemon. And I see Professor Turo, I see Counter Catcher, I see Rare Candy, I see a lot of good stuff for Gabe, but nothing that really turns the tables. I do see, however, a Dusknoir, which means that Rare Candy Dusknoir is definitely going to be a play. He may be able to wipe all of Kyler's support Pokemon, but you have to remember that in order to do that, he's going to have to use Dusknoir, which is going to put Kyler down to just 2 prize cards. And with that Rotom V on the bench, Kyler does have an easy way to even just use a Pecharunt EX to take that knockout. I'm not quite sure what's in Kyler's hand. He might not have the resources. I do see that Lost Vacuum. Definitely not going to be impactful. So he's going to go ahead and use that Dusknoir. He does opt to go for it and takes 2 prizes to Gabe. So he's at 2 prizes to 3. But Gabe is going to go ahead and knock out every single Roaring Moon on Kyler's board. And if his hand's not strong, I mean, Gabe kind of just wins the game here. Especially given that the Charizard EX is now dealing a whopping, I believe, 300 damage. Oh, and he mills the Briar. That is going to be definitely not something he loves to see, especially both Briar and Pheasantipity EX. So it's going to hurt for sure. But again, if Kyler doesn't have a response here, the game just ends. But looking at his hand, he's got an energy card. He can draw 2 more with Pheasantipity. He does top deck the Nest Ball, which is going to be huge for him, as he means he's going to be able to establish another Roaring Moon as long as he has one remaining in the deck. And I do see, I believe, Unfair Stamp, which is a huge get for Kyler here, as this is going to hurt a lot more when Gabe only has Charizard EXs in play and no Pidgeot. He might not have a way out, but even then, even better, it's going to give Kyler 5 fresh cards without using a supporter card, meaning he will be able to see a ton and potentially find Professor Sada's Vitality and Dark Patch. So going to use Pokestop first, just going to mill a couple cards out. He does find Ultra Ball and might be useful for him to be able to discard both that Pokemon Catcher and that Lost Vacuum. I can't see him using any of those in the following hands, and he definitely doesn't want to draw into them. So he's going to go ahead and another Mew EX. That's going to give him a couple more cards to draw. He's digging through his deck. He's just looking for a way he can power up this Roaring Moon and just use Frenzy Gouging to win the game. So we have Gabe cuts the deck here, and I imagine it's just going to be launching of that Unfair Stamp right after that manual attachment. Nope, but we're going to draw a couple cards with Mew first, just see 2 more. Can't argue with that. Pokegear, if this finds him Masada's Vitality, he's not going to need very much to end this game here. Let's see what he finds. Does he find it? And I think he does. He finds the Professor Sada's Vitality. That's a huge find there. He's going to make sure he only needs 1 more energy attachment to win. And that's going to have to come from Dark Patch because he has used his manual energy attachment for this turn. And he's just probably just going to play right away. And even better, this is going to give him 3 more cards, which makes it even more likely that he's just going to find that Dark Patch. And he does find it, which means Kyler is going to win game 2, forcing our set into a game 3 situation. And he's just showing off the office like, I didn't even play this. I didn't even need it. This was 5 more cards I could have drawn, and I still had it before even needing it. So that's just the power of Roaring Moon. When you can draw so many cards, you can just power up those moons easily, and you can knock anything out. It's a big deal. So we're going to have our players shuffle up for game 3, and I imagine it's going to just be a repeat where Gabe is the player to go first. Though we might see a shakeup if Gabe just decides to go second, saying, I really want to make sure that I can get a good setup. And I might just go ahead and choose to go second, making sure I can get that Arven as a turn 1 supporter option. So it looks like the judge is coming in for a judge shuffle. I'm not quite sure why, but we're going to go ahead and see. Oh yes, I believe I remember this as sitting on the side here. We had thought that there may have been a sleeve rip, but it looks like there wasn't, as far as I can remember. So we are just going to go ahead and just draw these 7 cards. So Gabe's got a basic, which means he's going to be able to start the game here pretty quick. Kyler does need to have one of his own, and it looks like he does. So we are off into a game 3. Gabe's setting out his prize cards. Same thing with Kyler. We are going to get to see their opening. I'm not seeing much in terms of the opening hand, but we are seeing a nest ball. So it's going to be a Pidgey start for Gabe and a Roaring Moon EX start. And just as I had predicted, looks like Gabe has chosen to go second, maybe saying, I really need to make sure I set up for this game 3, and I really would like the supporter to help me do so. It looks like we get a nest ball right away and the Squawkabilly bench. So it looks like this is going to be a very powerful turn for Kyler. It means he's just going to be able to set up multiple Roaring Moons if he can and see a ton of cards, which will definitely help, as he won't be able to attack this turn, but he will be able to set up very, very powerful and threatening attackers. It looks like he's eyeing up that Radiant Greninja potentially, or potentially a single prize Roaring Moon. Not quite sure, but it's going to be that single prize Roaring Moon. Not quite sure his hand, but that tells me that he definitely has some strength in that hand. So he's going to go ahead and Ultra Ball. I imagine this time it does going to be for Radiant Greninja, as he just wants to make sure his second hand off the Squawkabilly is going to be as powerful as possible. We'll see. Yes, and he does go ahead and choose that beautiful prize stamped Radiant Greninja, and he's putting it back, maybe saying, I want something else. Maybe I want a Petron EX. But no, he is going to go ahead and just choose that Radiant Greninja. With that powerful concealed cards, works great with this strategy, allowing you to discard 2 cards or discard a energy from your hand and draw 2 cards. Both gets energy in the car and the discard and gets you more cards. What more could you want as a Roaring Moon player? So that Dark Patch immediately coming down to power up that single prize moon. Now Kyler, all he needs is Pecharunt EX and another Dark Energy to have that guy all powered up and ready to go. Even though he can't attack this turn, it's going to be pretty useful for him to put that in the active, as it is much easier to attack with and is much more likely to be Kyler's first attack. So leaving in the active is definitely going to be better. But looks like Kyler just chooses to pass, saying, Gabe can't knock this Roaring Moon out. I don't really mind having it in the active, especially since Pecharunt EX can give this deck essentially free retreat on all of their Pokemon, which is very powerful. So we do see Buddy Buddy Poffin grabbing Charmander and Pidgey, opting for 2 Pidgeys this game, which is definitely a deviation from previous games, saying, look, I want to make sure I can definitely have a Pidgeot EX in play, even if Kyler is going to get the first attack here. I definitely agree with that. I think that's pretty important for his strategy. Still searching the deck, maybe looking to check, make sure he has all of his cards, see what maybe he has prized. That Briar is definitely going to be a very big deal. So attaching a Fire Energy to the active. Maybe he's going for a potential Technical Machine Evolution play, and it looks like that is what is going to happen. He's going to go ahead and use that Technical Machine Evolution. That's going to be able to get him Charmeleon and Pidgeotto, which will make it much easier for him to get into both Pidgeot and Charizard into the following turn. But you have to understand that that Charmander, even if it evolves, is still going to be a huge target for Kyler. All he needs is 2 ancient cards in the discard pile in order to be able to take a knockout on that Charmeleon. So Gabe's got to be definitely careful about how he sets up his board here. And he's choosing to discard the Briar, which is a very interesting. I'm not sure if Gabriel plays Palpad, but maybe he's saying, look, I don't have much else going in this hand. I have to discard something to maybe get a Duskull down, a second Charmander, anything like that. I think I definitely personally would have gone for a second Charmander, but I can definitely see the appeal of a Duskull here, especially if Kyler does miss all his catchers. That's all he needs to do to have a pretty good setup. He's just going to go ahead and play that Iono with Gabriel with no hands. He's just going to draw straight from the top. And looks like neither players are cutting each other's hands. So we're going to shuffle to the bottom and draw a card for each remaining prize card. So we've got Swinging a Heavy Ball coming down from Gabe. To just go ahead and check those prize cards, I see Boss's Orders, a single Charmander, and he's going to take that from the prizes, a rare candy, and I believe a Buddy Buddy Poffin I saw there. I'm not quite 100% sure, but those prizes don't seem super impactful, especially Professor Tur. It's definitely not going to matter much in this matchup. Having that Charmander prize really sucks, but that's what's great about Hisuian Heavy Bowl is you can go ahead and get that card straight out of the prizes and right into play. Um, Looks like the judge just was requesting that they fix their prize cards, make it more visible. Um, we've got a Tactical Machine Evolution coming down. He's going to go ahead and choose to evolve the Dusclops. Now, I can't really imagine why that's a good play. He must have one of the two in his hand. If he has both Charmeleon and Pidgeotto in his hand, that's going to be really bad for Gabe. He's going to make it both that his play is going to be very slow and quite difficult for him to set up. He's going to go over to Kyler, and now he is the first attacking turn, which is huge. But luckily for Gabe that he does have those two Charmanders down, so he can't just keep targeting down the potential attackers. I imagine the best play would likely just to target down one of the Charmanders anyway and make it more difficult for Gabe to string attackers throughout the rest of this game. But again, he does have to find that Pokemon catcher and hit a heads on that coin flip. We see the Ultra Ball. He's eyeing that up, and he goes ahead and plays it. Gonna have to discard 2 cards from his hand. He's definitely looking for, I imagine in this situation, just a Petron EX just to go ahead and guarantee that knockout. I think he's eyeing it up, so I think it is what he's going to go for. And he's just checking the rest of his resources, making sure he has everything in here that he needs, and it looks like he has most of it. I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen many dark patches. You can tell what are the dark patches because he is playing 4 of those secret rares from Astral Radiance. I was just going to go ahead and check his resources here. Checking to make sure he has what he needs to pull off what he wants to do this turn. He's going to go ahead and Sada. Very powerful supporter, getting 2 energy onto his Pokemon. And as we draw through cards, I see Pokestop, Dark Energy, and Professor Sada's Vitality. And he's going to go ahead and bench that Petron. Now, it's pretty good that he got that Professor Sada's Vitality. It means he is going to have a supporter for the following turn, assuming Gabriel doesn't hit him with something like an Unfair Stamp or an Iono. He's just debating whether or not to play the Pokestop. He doesn't really want to give Gabe access to more cards, but also it could be good for him to just keep on digging through the deck and powering up attackers. Looks like he's going to choose not to play the Pokestop, and he's just going to go ahead and manual attach to the second Moon EX. That sub's getting chains, getting him free retreat. He's just going to attack with a single prizer into this Pidgey. Now, Gabe is faced with a tough choice. I mean, he's not really going to be able to do much this turn, especially given the seeming weakness of his hand. But that Arbin top deck is going to be a very big deal. It is going to allow him to go get at least 1 rare candy as long as he has Boss's Orders. As long as he has access to a card like Ultra Ball or Rare Candy, he could Arbin for the other one and get at least a Pidgeot set up this turn. Maybe he wants to opt for Charizard instead, not really wanting to make that Pidgeot a target. Especially still has access to that Dusclops. I'm not really sure in what great way he can use it. So he's going to go ahead and play Pidgeotto down. He's going to go ahead and Arbin there. So he's going to go ahead and Arbin. He's going to eye up that Unfair Stamp, wanting to set Kyler back down to 2 prizes. Now Kyler's bench is full. He is only going to get access to 2 cards here without access to Pheasantipity. If there's no energy in that hand, he's not going to really be able to draw any cards, which is going to be very powerful. Let's get that Defiance Band. And Gabriel needs a lot off this Unfair Stamp too, especially given that Kyler has not given him access to the Pokestop, choosing to play down that Forest Seal Stone. Maybe saying, look, I'm not sure if I'll get great use out of this match. I do still have to put a Rotom V in play. That is a 2-prizer that is easier for Kyler to KO. I don't really want to give him access to that easy knockout. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this Forest Seal Stone so I don't draw into it again off this unfair stamp. And that's just going to set Kyler down to 2 prizes, which is going to be a pretty weak position overall, especially with no EX Moon fully powered up. He's going to have to get either a Sada or a Dark Patch. And I do see Petrunt and Lost Vacuum. Those 2 cards, I, he can play the Lost Vacuum, but it's not really going to do anything. So if he doesn't top deck anything here, this might be a game over already for Gabe. Might be able to take the set 2-0. Discard the Manaphy and the Ultra Ball, and I'm not quite sure. I didn't quite see the rest of his hand, but if he has a rare candy in it, this might be very powerful. And it looks like he does. He does have the Charizard EX natural off that unfair stamp drop. That's going to be a huge benefit for Gabe here. He's going to go ahead and play it on the active, probably debating whether or not he wants to use it on the Charmander with the Defiance Vest, maybe choosing to go to the active, saying, look, I don't want to end up wasting any energy by retreating my Charmander here. And he still has access to Dusknoir, so this could be a very devastating turn, though I think I would personally hold off on the Dusclops this turn at least, and maybe force Kyler to have a response before you go ahead and give him extra cards. So he's going to go ahead and announce that Burning Darkness to knock out that Roaring Moon. And I mean, this is the moment. Kyler has to top deck something here. His match is over. And it is an energy card, which is going to be massive. It's going to let him see just 2 more cards with the Greninja. And he finds a Pokestop as well. This is incredible. And the Nest Ball. The Nest Ball is going to let him go get both Pheasantipity and a Dark Patch as well. I can't imagine this have gone any better for Kyler here. These draws are incredible. And we see some laughter there from Kyler as even he potentially can't even believe how lucky this situation ended up being for him. That Pheasantipity is going to give him access to so many more resources than he had previously. Going to make it much easier to potentially power up these Roaring Moons, especially with that 1 Dark Patch. All he needs is either a manual attach from hand or a Professor Sada's, both of which are pretty common in the deck. Oh, going to go ahead and use Pheasantipity's Flip the Script to just see 3 more cards. And it's going to be another Dark Patch, which means Kyler is going to have another Moon powered up this turn, which is bad news for Gabe, as he will have to carry out a response the next turn. He's going to get the 2 energy from the Earthen Vessel. And he's going to have that manual attachment and that Dark Patch. It means he's going to be able to power up almost 2 full Roaring Moons this next turn. Which could spell disaster for Gabe, given how far behind he is on his board state. He's going to have to find enough resources to get Pidgeot and Charizard EX, hopefully up next turn, and potentially a Dusknoir to make anything meaningful happening this next turn. And we see that Roaring Moon there on the other side of the bench powered up. He's debating whether or not he wants to play Dark Patch right away. I can't imagine there's a situation where you don't. You will be going down to 3 prize cards, and you definitely don't want to be left out trying to find multiple ways to power up another Roaring Moon if Gabriel does end up responding. No Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, which is going to be big because Gabe is going to be able to utilize Charmander's attack potentially to attack and take a knockout with a single prizer next turn, which is going to be a line for Gabe. He's just going to have to decide what to promote here before he goes ahead and draws per turn. And oh dear, it looks like he's gone ahead and drawn a card before promoting. And that's not going to be very good for him, unfortunately. It looks like Kyler there trying to remedy the situation, saying it doesn't really matter much what he promotes, but we are going to have a judge step in and give a decision. It's definitely very unfortunate if a penalty is awarded here, because it would basically spell the end. I can't imagine a way for Gabe to really come back if Kyler only needs to take 1 prize to win the game. You're getting a decision here from the judge. Yeah. Just some discussion between the judge and our player happening here. And I believe the final decision here is that there was a double prize penalty awarded to Gabe for uh, drawing a card before promotion, which is very unfortunate. It's definitely not what you want to see. You got to be very careful in these situations to make sure that you're following the rules to a T. The card is being revealed to both players and it's going to be shuffled in. That Charizard was definitely going to be a huge top deck, as Gabe did have the ability to go and utilize um, that Arvin to go get a rare candy, but it seems like that might not even be an option given the way that this game is going. Gabe's just thinking here what he even wants to do. I'm not sure there's much you can do in this situation, unfortunately. So he's going to promote the Pidgeotto and draw a card. And it is going to be the Dusknoir, which is a pretty considerable top deck, just like that Charizard was. But unfortunately, it's not a great spot no matter what. Gabe's going to go ahead and play that Arvin. Imagine going to get an Ultra Ball for Pidgeot, and I am correct. He's probably got to get a tool to discard as well, which is going to be that Techno Machine Evolution. That's another great use of Techno Machine Evolution. It is able to be discarded off Arvin, which means you only need to discard one additional card to play an Ultra Ball, which is very strong. Looking through his deck, looks like he is going to play out the rest of the match. It's just unfortunate that the match had to take this route, as it really just closes off basically any chance of Gabe winning this. I can't really see a world because all Kyler would need to do is put an energy on that second Roaring Moon and take a knockout. Gabe really doesn't even have access to that Dusknoir because if he uses it, Gabe or Kyler would win the game immediately. It looks like the players did not mark their prizes. It might be a little bit of an oversight there. And I'm still thinking about what to do. Drawing 3 with Flip the Script. It's like I'm not quite sure. Didn't get a good look at what he drew there. On the counter catcher, that might help a little bit. At least you can knock out that Roaring Moon, but it's not going to be very impactful because all Kyler has to do, and he looks like he has used that Dusknoir, which will mean that Kyler has won the game with that double prize penalty. Yeah, it's just a very unfortunate situation, and it's not what we want to see in our Masters top 4. But great, excellent showing to both our players here, especially to Gabe. It looks like they're just playing the rest out, potentially. I'm not quite sure, but Kyler has definitely won the match right here with that Dusknoir play. But they are going to play out a little bit of the match, which is great from both our players here. But Kyler will be the one advancing to our Masters final. But an excellent showing from Gabe. He played exceptionally well. That unfair stamp play was excellent. Let me see. Gabe did prize that Charmeleon. That's definitely huge. That's primarily likely the reason that he did not TM Evo for it on that first turn. Again, very unfortunate, but that does mark an end to our Masters top 4. Thank you very much for watching.